So Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. just fought for the second time, and I don't think anyone was expecting this result. During their first fight, they had a back and forth war where Eubank was able to come out stronger towards the end of the fight, securing a close fought win. People thought the second fight would follow a similar pattern, but Conor Benn might have won pretty much every round of the fight. It's clear that he went off and sharpened his tools to get past the weaknesses that he displayed in his first fight, whereas Eubank has noticeably gotten worse. Eubank never really got started and it seemed like he was flat and weak. Eubank already had a tough time making 160, and it's clear that he's having a hard time making weight, because how is it that every time he's shown cutting weight, it's like he's on the verge of death? I understand that by shrinking down he can get an advantage over smaller fighters, but at a certain point this stops being an advantage and becomes life-threatening. The fight itself was entertaining to watch, but that's to be expected when you have two guys as theatrical as Eubank and Benn fighting each other. They have it in their blood, and it was clear that they wanted to create a show for the fans. The fight started with Benn landing jabs to the body and head, with Eubank trying to return fire with his own jab. This already set a different tone to the first fight because Benn hardly used his jab last time. By the second round, Benn was coming forward behind his jab and ripping to the body, forcing Eubank on defense. It was clear that Benn and his team worked on the jab to set up their power shots. Round 3 followed a similar pattern, with Benn landing at will to the body after setting up his body shots with his jab. At this point, there were red flags from Eubank because he almost looked confused about what to do. Round 4 started to get a bit messy, with both fighters grappling with each other in the clinch, forcing the referee to step in and break them repeatedly. Both of them weren't really doing much, so it's clear that they were opting to take a round off. By round 5, Eubank still didn't have a plan to deal with Benn's body attacks coming off the jab. Benn landed his jab to dominate the rest of the round. At the start of round 6, Benn started to fire strong jabs to open up Eubank's guard, and Eubank still hadn't really done anything to nullify it. He occasionally lands a counter to the jab, but he isn't firing anything on top of it. By round 7, commentators and fans started to notice that Eubank looked weak, with him taking extra time to get off the stool. At this point, it honestly felt like something was off about him, but there can't really be any excuses made. Benn noticed this and got on him as soon as the round started. Benn started firing to Eubank's body, and it's clear that the body shots are giving him problems. Round 8 followed a similar pattern, with Benn coming out fast and Eubank moving to not get cornered. Benn went up and down with his jab whilst Eubank was on the defense. Eubank eventually found himself cornered and Benn started opening fire on him. By round 11, it was clear that Eubank needed a knockout to win. He started countering Benn's jab with a counter right hand, but it was too little too late. Eubank eventually found himself on the ropes again and started getting worked by punches coming in from all angles. Coming into round 12, Benn was ahead on all the cards, and it was clear that Eubank needed to do something to win the fight. Eubank tried coming in behind his jab, but got caught coming in by Benn's jab. He managed to fire a right hand over the jab, and Eubank stumbled to the mat. Within just 30 seconds, Benn went for the finish and managed to land an overhand right to send Eubank crashing down again, but with only 10 seconds left, it was clear that the fight would go to the scorecards. Unsurprisingly, Benn got the decision and seemingly ended the rivalry, calling out Mario Barrios as his next opponent. Personally, I think it's time for both fighters to move on from this because we've seen enough of them already, and at this point, it's not like Eubank can somehow improve from this to win a potential third fight. He lost every round of the fight, and if the 12th round was a minute longer, he would have been stopped. I think Eubank's biggest problem recently has been him trying to strip down in weight far below what's healthy for him. At 36, it's going to be hard for him to cut large amounts of weight, and he's already pretty lean, so the only way for him to make weight is through dehydrating. Cutting weight gives boxers an advantage because they get to go down in weight to make the fight, then balloon back to their original size, which makes them bigger than their opponents. They do this by using rapid weight cutting methods designed to drop water off and not fat. This process starts with the boxer drinking 6 to 8 liters of water a day the week before a fight. This tricks the body into flushing out water. A few days before the fight, they drop down to 2 to 3 liters a day, and the body continues flushing out water. The day before the fight, the boxer would drink no water and the body would continue to flush out water even after intake stops. They also make rapid and unhealthy changes to their diet, like cutting out carbs to drop a few kilos and restricting sodium because salt holds water. To top it all off, boxers then use saunas to sweat off weight and train lightly in sweatsuits to get a light sweat going. This process is the most torturous experience a person can go through because you're slowly dying. You end up having mood crashes, start thinking slowly, and get headaches and nausea. The upside to this is that you end up being the bigger, stronger fighter, which can be a significant physical edge, but there's a long list of downsides. By dehydrating, the cerebrospinal fluid around your brain decreases. This fluid cushions your brain, and without it, you're more likely to get dropped or concussed by shots you could normally take. Dehydrating also dulls your reaction time, slowing down your visual tracking and neural speed. The major downside is that boxers also see a massive drop in cardio. When you're dehydrated, plasma volume in the blood falls, which means less oxygen gets delivered to your muscles, and your heart has to work harder during intense exercise. This is why a lot of fighters who cut weight may start strong, but start to fall apart in the later rounds. Eubank is a natural middleweight at 160, who's even fought for super middleweight world titles at 168. By having to drop down to 157 pounds, he not only has to dehydrate, but also has to lose muscle. I believe that this has a massive impact on his cardio, punch resistance, and reaction time. Now, I'm not making any excuses for Eubank. He agreed to this fight and no one forced him to make the weight, but this is one of the biggest reasons as to why he performed badly in this fight. Junior's style has always been to be a high engine pressure fighter who thrives in the later rounds, but this nightmare weight cut clearly affected his cardio, forcing him to fight slowly. He looked drained, slower, and less able to get to work. A lot of people are saying that Eubank should retire because he's 36 and went through these massive wars when he's already made his millions, but honestly, I think he could still continue to have a successful career, just not at middleweight. If he chooses to continue boxing, he should come back at either light heavyweight or cruiserweight, where he won't have to dehydrate and will be able to fight at full capacity. You may think this is a massive jump in weight class, but his skill and experience would definitely be a massive factor. He may not have knockout power at higher weights, but he could definitely outbox a lot of light heavyweights or cruiserweights, especially with his cardio being back. We've seen a lot of other fighters make a similar jump recently, like Badou Jack, who was a former super middleweight champion and is now the current WBC cruiserweight champion. Jack uses his experience and ring IQ to make up for his lack of power and natural size at the weight class to outclass his opponents. Another example would be the current WBO cruiserweight champion Gilberto Ramirez, who made a similar jump from being a super middleweight champion to cruiserweight champion. Ramirez always had a hard time making super middleweight, having to starve himself to make weight. He said moving up to cruiserweight was the best decision he ever made for his career. Conor Benn looked great in this fight and he couldn't have settled this rivalry any better. He could definitely contest a world title now, and he's already said he wants to fight Mario Barrios at 147. I can see this fight happening because Benn could probably make this weight. He's not a natural 156 pound fighter and his fighting weight is probably 147. One of the champions at 147 is Mario Barrios, who currently holds the WBC welterweight title. He's tall, rangy, and could definitely prove to be a strong challenge for Benn. I don't see Benn being able to compete at 154 with the likes of Virgil Ortiz, Jaron Ennis, or Sebastian Fundora. There's just too many sharks at super welterweight, and Benn's team should keep him away from that weight class. I also don't think that Benn has the size or frame for 154 because these guys are usually around 6 foot and look meaty, whilst Benn is at 5'8". Although it's possible to be successful at 154 with this frame, it's clear that Benn's power drops when he goes past 150 because he's fought past 150 a few times and he's never been able to stop anyone, whereas he was able to stop his last opponent at 147. Personally, I would like to see Benn fight Barrios because I see it being a competitive fight and I would like the winner to try and unify at welterweight. Let me know what you guys think is next for Conor Benn and what fights are you guys looking forward to.